What is a submarine? A submarine is a steel tube in which we put 3,000-pound hydraulic pipes, 4,500 pounds per square inch high-pressure air, everywhere you can reach. We've got 450-volt AC power, 250-volt DC power. We have fans and pumps. We arm it with the weapons of almost unimaginable destructive power. We propel it with a nuclear reactor, and then we take it out and intentionally sink it in salt water. That's not inherently safe.
The latest Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine is limited in its capability by only one thing: how much food she can carry. Usually, it's 60 days' supplies for her crew of almost 150. Getting them on board is a tricky maneuver. Everything that enters the submarine goes through a narrow hatch: food, men, and weapons. Below is a sealed world of work, drills, sleep, and more work in a cramped and sunless environment. The Topeka is preparing to go out on patrol. Only a handful of people know where she's going and for how long. She may be gone 12 hours or 6 months, patrolling close to Russia or lurking in the Red Sea. This is the world of the submariner, regardless of his nationality. The former Soviet Union still has the largest submarine fleet in the world, though much of it consists of aging diesel electrics, like this Foxtrot. She is nearing the end of her useful life. Nonetheless, this patrol could take her as far as the Mediterranean, and for 6 months. Returning from 2-month sea trials in the Atlantic is Her Majesty's submarine Unseen. She is also a diesel-electric and is the Royal Navy's most modern non-nuclear submarine. Submarines have always inspired both fascination and fear. Their movements remain closely guarded secrets, and the lives of the men aboard a mystery. They all belong to a closed society, members of an exclusively male club. Separation is a fact of life, shared by all submariners and their families. Once a man goes on patrol, he may as well be on the moon. It's a continual cycle of separation and reunion. Some say it's like a divorce every 6 months. Others that it's a honeymoon.
I'm not married myself, but my views on the Navy itself, as far as marriage is concerned, and going to sea, I think it does put a lot of pressure on a marriage.
When a ship goes to sea, like the ones out here, the most suspended sea actually at sea maybe 5 or 6 days before they pull into a port. We go out, we might spend 6 to 8 weeks at sea. The only people you see, the people you see around you now. That's it all the time. You can't contact your family, you can't write to them.
It must be there.
Hard to leave the family, hard to leave the children. I have 2 little ones, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. They don't really understand 6 months, but even when I'm only gone for a week, they know when I'm gone for a few days, and they start asking Mom, where's Daddy, and that sort of thing. Standing in the front window, where's Daddy, when's he coming home, why's Daddy not here for dinner?
I feel kind of sad because you see him for a while and then he takes off, and then he comes back and then he takes off. I like it when he comes back, and I don't like it when he leaves. There's Daddy!
When his boat moves away from the dock, a submariner enters a world which he cannot share with anyone except those around him. By tradition, submarine service is the most secretive among the military in any country. Once the Topeka reaches deep water off San Diego, she will dive, entering her true element.
The first dive was frightening. I mean, in the school they tell you how the submarine works, they put together, what happens when you dive. When I actually stood there, and the aft went down first of all, and I was sat in the control thinking, well, this is wrong, I'm going down backwards. And the back goes down, the front goes down, and they actually dive.
Officer of the deck, when you're steady on course, submerge the ship.
When I'm steady on course, submerge the ship, aye, sir.
Operating a submarine requires precision teamwork. The captain's orders are repeated and relayed several times before being carried out. It's part of a system of multiple checks designed to eliminate the possibility of error.
Diving officer, submerge the ship to 150 feet.
Submerge the ship to 150 feet, aye, sir.
Driving also was 2 bloods, huh?
Dive! 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 Dive!
To submerge his ship, a submariner must do what every surface sailor dreads: take water on board. Ballast tanks are flooded for extra weight, and diving planes steer the boat below. Achieving what's called neutral buoyancy is a fine balance between submerging and sinking.
Deck's awash.
Deck's awash, aye, sir. Full diving bow plane. Establish a 3-degree down bubble. 7-2.
Technically, it would be possible to automate many of these functions. But when a submarine operates as deep as 1,500 feet, a minor mechanical problem could push it to crushing depth. Though quicker to identify emergencies, computers cannot combat them. As in the cockpit of an aircraft, there is no room for mistakes. Seeing the Foxtrot crew take her down, you could be forgiven for thinking you were watching a World War II movie. But once again, rigorous teamwork is everything. More than in any other branch of naval service, each man relies absolutely on his crewmate to do his job correctly. Submariners of all navies know their lives depend on each other. Whoever else may be friend or foe, they share a common enemy.
The submariner has only one enemy, and that's all round him, the immensely powerful and utterly implacable sea.
The United States Navy suffers a tragic disaster. A drama of sorrow is written when the submarine Squalus plunges to the bottom of the sea off the North Atlantic coast.
Historically, submarining has proved a dangerous business, reflected in the tradition of hazardous duty pay. Even peacetime brings its own disasters, as in the case of the Squalus.
Risked his life to help save the 33 survivors, now reports everything in readiness for the venture.
And the prospect of rescue remains uncertain. In most of the waters of the world, you can't recover a submarine. As one admiral said, the only point in locating a wreck is to know where to send the flowers.
More air is forced into the pontoon and something's wrong! The second pontoon has broken loose. The churning water is a bad sign, and the fears of the rescue workers prove well-founded as the Squalus breaks water momentarily, only to slip silently back to its ocean bed tomb.
The safety record of our submarines is not perfect. In particular, we have lost 2 nuclear submarines over the course of the program, the Thresher in 1963 and the Scorpion in 1968 were very significant events in our program.
It was in April of 1963 that the Thresher made her last dive and became the watery tomb for a crew of 129 men.
The Thresher was the deepest diving combat submarine in the world. Her loss, caused by flooding and a reactor shutdown, was a tragic reminder that submarines operate alone in an environment as unforgiving as space.
There is no margin for mistakes in a submarine. You're either alive or dead.
Offshore the deck, reverse course to the right using a 25-degree rudder angle.
Reverse course to the right using a 25-degree rudder angle, aye, sir. Helm right, 25 degrees rudder.
25 degrees rudder, helm aye, sir.
Steady course 180.
Steady course 180, helm aye. Offshore deck, my rudder is right 25 degrees, sir.
Very well, helm.
Commander Jablonski is putting Topeka through her paces. Usually he warns the crew, but not this time. Among other things, it's a good check to see if everything's stowed correctly. If you're being chased, the last thing you want is a tin of baked beans banging against the hull and giving your position away. They call it angles and dangles. To this day, the U.S. Navy will only admit to speeds in excess of 20 knots. But it's accepted that boats like the Topeka are capable of nearly twice this speed, almost 50 miles per hour submerged. In the underwater games of tag played between the superpowers, speed and maneuverability are essential ingredients, vital for outrunning your opponent and hopefully even his torpedoes.
Launch maneuvering, make normal 2/3 turns.
Normal 2/3 turns, aye.
Helm left 15 degrees rudder, steady course north.
Left 15 degrees rudder, steady course north, helm aye.
When you going to school?
Petty Officer Shaw is a nuclear engineer. His workspace is aft of the crew's mess and occupies almost half of the boat. It's a classified area where no cameras are allowed. Beyond this door is the heart of the Topeka, the nuclear reactor. Highly radioactive uranium generates intense heat, which superheats water in a separate loop of pipes to produce steam. This drives a turbine to create electricity, which in turn powers the propeller. Although nuclear safety is taken very seriously, there's a friendly rivalry about the pros and cons of working on nuclear as opposed to diesel-electric boats.
They call us nuke flukes. We call them diesel weeders because of the smell or whatever you get from them, and they come alongside.
Yeah, we're the real submariners. I mean, as you can see over there, we were the forerunners of the submarines, and then these like just come along and take all the limelight, so to speak. You know.
The thing is, they call themselves proper submariners, and these diesel boats in the background, they spend most of the time on the surface. So, you know, I rest my case.
They're dependent on the surface. Nuclear boats make our own air, our own water. We don't need the surface at all. Once when we dive, we stay dived for as long as the food lasts. That's the only limit to how long you stay dived. Your food.
Yeah, but I don't turn off the lights and glow in the dark, do I? You know, which is what's going to happen with you. I mean, you're that close to a nuclear reactor. I mean, you know.
When I started this, I had no idea what I was getting into. I had the same ideas about glowing people and material and all that stuff. That's really not how it is at all. It's very safe. Every person in the engineering department, in fact, everyone on the boat, on the entire submarine, wears dosimetry. It measures the doses that radiation that they get. Mine is something like this right here. It's a small thing I wear on my belt, and it measures the amount of gamma neutron radiation I get.
The U.S. Navy is intensely sensitive to public perceptions of nuclear power and the safety of its men. But unanswered questions remain about the effects of exposure and the potential danger of nuclear submarines in heavily populated ports. Even the welfare of civilian refit workers is now a matter for debate.
Safety is the biggest aspect. Safety is everything, and the entire boat is designed to keep everything in the boat if anything happened.
Russian nuclear submarines have a poor safety record, despite the claims of their designers.
You ask me my assessment of the radiation hazard on board this boat. I tell you, in fact, that, strange as it may seem, the level of radiation on board nuclear-powered submarines is lower than what you and I are exposed to when we walk around the city.
All submarines are designed as weapons of war. Once underway, the rhythm of the machine takes over, whether it's an antiquated diesel-electric like this or a modern nuclear boat. Priority is given to the propulsion and weapon systems. On a deck built for missile tubes, living quarters must be crammed into the spaces left over.
Never heard it? She's about 5'6", long blonde hair. She dances all the time.
A submariner's life is unique in the military. Unlike the aviator or the tank driver, he doesn't park his weapon at the end of the day. He lives inside the machine. They used to call them sewer pipe sailors. But nowadays, atmosphere control is rigorous, apart from indulging smokers. Aerosols, luminous watches, and even boot polish are forbidden, lest they contaminate the closed environment. Fresh oxygen and water are made from the sea.
5 more!
They say the food is the best in the service, but unlike the Royal Navy, no alcohol is allowed on board. Enlisted men eat the same as the officers, but there's a chow line rather than silver service. Trash must be compacted and dumped into the sea, heavily weighted so as not to betray your position. Underway, distinction between night and day quickly disappears. Your time is broken into watches. 6 hours on, 6 hours off.
Yeah, Rick, it's time to get up and go on watch, man.
Weekends become a thing of the past. The routine is relentless.
Yeah, Dan, it's 5 o'clock. It's time to get up and go
Your
on
bunk's
watch,
really your only place that's yours. And we have to do things to kind of keep our morale up. A lot of guys bring personalized sheets when they go to sea. I've seen Snoopy sheets. I've seen sheets with hearts on them, and even seen one guy where a guy had a full-length computer image of his wife on the sheet. So
There's very little privacy on board. There's none. Well, no, you do have some. You have your rack.
Yeah, that's the only place on board that you can really, go and get your thoughts together. If you've had a really stressed out day, you just have to jump in it and close the curtain, and that's all you got as far as privacy.
Yep, that's it. The rest of it is share.
And share alike.
Share alike, there you go.
I got some of my rack.
It probably takes a special type of bloke to serve in submarines. Not all of us are volunteers, however, but there are very few people, in fact I can only think of 2 or 3, who have not enjoyed the comradeship and the closeness and the sort of interdependence that you have in a submarine, which is a peculiar characteristic of submarines. You are quite literally living in each other's pockets.
You do get close, friendship-wise. Yeah. Darling. You do build, I think, a sort of special friendships, that you wouldn't sort of get outside the Navy on a submarine.
You live in such confined spaces and whatnot, and because you all eat together, you literally sleep on top of one another, which not, but you know what I mean. You sort of, it's you go out drinking together when you arrive at a port and whatnot. So you sort of like buddies, as I say, all buddies in boats, as they say.
It's very close on board, but when you go on long patrols, the tension it can get a bit too much at times. If you need to get away from someone, you've got nowhere to run. You're on board, you're stuck there, you can't leave. It takes a special kind of person to be able to handle the stress at times. You can't handle the stress, you can't live on board.
I don't know about her, man. I heard a few things about her.
Everybody knows her.
Well, how's her attitude? She got a nice attitude?
She's got a good personality. She's fun partying with.
It's just like a big family when we're underway. Everyone's really tight. Yeah, the way you talk to people, the way you touch people. I think everybody here is really secure with themselves where they can do things like this underway in this kind of environment, but in public, it wouldn't be acceptable.
The engineers, or nukes, joke that the torpedo man's job is to protect their reactor. Torpedo men, or coners, call the nukes their chauffeurs. Either way, the torpedo is central to the hunter-killer's lethal anti-submarine role. Sophisticated active sonar, a Mark 48 torpedo is guided to its target by 20,000 yards of wire. At a maximum speed of 55 miles an hour, the advanced capability version is fast enough to catch the swiftest Russian submarine. Topeka also carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, demonstrated with such ferocity during the Gulf War by her sister submarines. Tubes loaded, the Topeka is ready for action.
Well, there's very little difference between a submarine operating in peacetime and in wartime as far as the submarine is concerned. We are going out and we are covert. We are doing the same type of missions. We do everything up to the point of actually firing our weapons, and that is one of the reasons why our readiness is so high, is that when we go into an area, we're not detected. No one knows we're there, so we can conduct our operation just as if we had a wartime mission in that area. This is the captain. Our situation right now is that we are moving into an area where there's been hostile submarine activity. We've received authorization to attack any hostile submarines, and we're conducting a sonar search for those contacts now. Carry on. That sound is the sound of the water running past our hydrophones that we use for underwater communication, but we can also hear other sounds in the water. And we're listening for close contacts. You would hear their screw blade noise coming through that speaker.
A fast attack submarine is always only minutes away from responding to or initiating aggression. At the same time, she might spy on enemy maneuvers or intercept their underwater communication systems. Essential to all this is stealth, remaining undetected. It requires a state of constant alert. Commander Jablonski's first priority in wartime would be destruction of enemy boomers before they could launch their nuclear missiles. This might involve intricate maneuvers under the polar ice cap, traditional territory for Russian submarines.
Время занятия района 19-20. Боцман, держать 26 метров. Боцман, держать 25 метров.
Ballistic missile submarines, like the Typhoon, operate to a different rhythm. Much of their time is spent simply hiding. Like cosmonauts aboard an orbiting space station, their crews live a life of virtual suspended animation. But not even Jules Verne pictured life like this at the bottom of the sea. As the world's biggest submarine, the Typhoon deserves the traditional nickname of the floating hotel. In its atmosphere of a comfortable, if slightly dated health club, it's easy to forget its deadly purpose. It's one way of maintaining crew morale, despite very low pay, uncertainty about the future, and poor conditions at home. Despite all his responsibility, even Captain Zhiguliov earns only a few dollars a month.
Дождусь ли я тебя, сынок? Дождусь ли я тебя, сынок?
And then there's the traditional fringe benefit of the nuclear submariner. Russia may be finding it hard to feed its civilian population, but it clearly attaches importance to taking care of the submarine force.
Little things are important out there. The cooks burn chow, the whole crew gets pissed. Can't show the movie when you want to. Upsets people. We mess with each other a lot. We'll know something agitates a guy, so we'll do that to agitate him just to get to him.
In those last 3 or 4 weeks of patrol, though, you can tell everybody's ready to get home, because everybody's like at each other's throat going, okay,
yeah, it goes.
Fine, just get out of my face.
Starts out, everyone's in a pretty good mood and happy and having a lot of fun. And towards the end of patrol, we tend to get pretty uptight with each other.
We do little things that are funny to us, might not be funny to other people. We freeze people's shoes and steal their pillow, and it sounds like kid stuff, but it breaks the boredom out there.
The isolation is intense. You can't call home or even write a letter. But 8 times each patrol, the Navy allows you a message from home. Whatever news can be squeezed into 50 words. They call them family grams.
I know you'll think I'm crazy, but I had to ring home just to hear your voice on the answering machine. It made me cry. Can't wait to see you. All my love, Patty.
Familygrams are really important once we get underway and on toward the end of patrol, because they got, you just got to have something to keep the guys up and keep them going. And the morale factor on a familygram is the biggie on the boat.
One of the joys of being a radioman is after watch. You get to walk through the ship and you've got a whole stack of familygrams in your hand. People are sitting there going, have I got a gram? Have I got a gram? Now what's kind of bad is when you have to give them a gram for their mom, right? Oh, my mom! All right, but my wife, yes! Or you find out that their kids are doing great in basketball. Yes, yes, yes! So it's a good feeling. It's it's sort of like a mail call in the old movies. Mail call!
In the confinement and isolation, boredom can become a professional hazard.
I think anyone has boredom with their job sometimes, but you can be sitting on watch and then the sonarmen pick up a contact in what was a boring mid-watch, now you're chasing somebody.
All right, attention and control. We have what's been classified as a hostile submarine. Sierra 34 now bears 098. The contact is drawn to the right. My intention is to move around behind them and get in position to attack them with a Mark 48 torpedo. Carry on.
Man battle stations. Man battle stations.
We operate in realistic scenarios. You don't think about it a lot, but in the back of your mind, you know that your profession, if called upon, is to go out there and destroy the enemy, and we're ready to do that. Helm, steady course 170.
Steady course 170.
39 years old, Commander Edward Jablonski controls $1 billion weapon system. It's a responsibility he relishes.
It's a very challenging time, and it gets your heart pumping because you know that you're in a position where if you make a mistake, you have the potential to give away your position.
Weapons officer, tube 3 will be the first tube, tube 4 will be the backup tube.
Tube 3, first tube 4, backup tube, aye, sir.
Our mission is to go in there and destroy specific targets, whether it's with our torpedoes or with our cruise missiles, but whether we carry nuclear weapons or not is not something that can be discussed at the unclassified level. So we'll leave the question at that.
Yep, tube 3 is flooded pressure mission open down in Nora, tube 3.
It's a violent profession if you look at it, at the fundamental level, but you're not going to deter aggression or beat your enemy without some destruction.
Stand by. Shoot.
Bitter course 180. Very well, weapons.
That's full fun. 600 here. Shot looks good on plot.
Very well, plot. Officer deck.
Secure from battle. Secure from battle stations, aye. Keep a watch on the 1FC secure battle stations.
Secure battle stations.
All stations con slowing. Machine 150 feet. Preparation to come to periscope depth.
Copy, right.
Well, this is clearly the best submarine in the world. I mean, there is no comparison as far as I'm concerned. There's no other platform that I would want to be on if the shooting started. We could take on and defeat anything that's out there.
Officer of the deck, proceed to periscope depth.
For months on end, the captain alone will decide on the submarine's operations, reporting his results only on return to base. Constant drilling, like this anti-submarine exercise, keeps the edge on his men during the long periods of confinement.
Tough, ruthless training isn't just to gain professionalism. It's because there's another kind of pressure. It's not just the sea that exerts pressure, it's the circumstances, the psychological pressure.
Aboard the submarine Haddock, the Navy's Operation Hideout draws to a close after 2 months of being sealed below decks for the 23-man volunteer crew. It's been a test of human fitness over prolonged periods of submerged conditions, and the crew's reactions will largely determine the human factor in the Navy's first atomic submarine, designed to stay under indefinitely. What's the first thing these bearded sea dogs wanted to do after 60 days of confinement? Why, shave with fresh, hot water.
Admiral Rickover said, we don't know if we have any problems aboard our submarines because we don't send psychiatrists out on them. And I rather endorse that.
The atomic submarine Nautilus cruised under the Arctic ice on the North Pole itself. An historic underwater voyage from Hawaii to England.
We had a psychiatrist, for example, on board the Nautilus when it went under the pole. And looking for the stresses of the people. The stresses aren't there. The people aren't stressed in submarine operations. If they are, they won't get in them or they'll get out of them. The only person stressed on Nautilus was a psychiatrist because the crew teased him so much.
One place I went when I was on one submarine, we had very limited amount of water underneath us, and we had very limited amount of water above us because of the polar ice. And the job you did then was very, very important, and one mistake and everything could be gone. You either hit the bottom or you hit the ice. So it's stressful being out there all by yourself.
The pressure of separation contributes to the highest divorce rate in the armed services.
One of the bad things about submarining in general is usually each run you're going to wind up with maybe 2 to 3 divorces. After a while of reading the same grams over and over again, you can see when there's a problem. The family grams, they lose the warmth. After a while of reading them, you kind of sit there and you don't really want to give the guy the gram.
With bad news, most of the time it's better if you don't hear about it, because there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you're still going to be out there on patrol, you're going to be doing your job, and if you don't know about it, you're better off, until you get back.
The people who survive that pressure and perform really well are those who've had the toughest training. Sometimes people say, okay, how do they release that pressure? Well, I can tell you the best way by far. It's sex. Wives and girlfriends are really crucial to submariners.
Now for a more intimate and personal welcome from wives and children, families and friends. A scene in which America joins while echoing the Navy's traditional words of praise, well done, very well done.
Some of the wives get awful lonely, and they want to let their husbands know that they're lonely. So they'll sit there and you'll get some spicy family grams, and not too to the point of being vulgar, but slightly risque. Something like, I can't wait to wrap my loving arms and legs around you, or something to that effect. Or can't wait for you to bring home we can have a special dinner ready for you. Can't wait for you to bring home the meat, things to that effect. And those kind of grams, we'll chop out the names so that no one gets embarrassed, to protect the innocent or guilty or whatever. And those become the family grams of the week. We post those down on the mess deck so everybody can get a laugh out of them. If it weren't for the grams, sometimes we'd go insane. Because everybody has to know that, even though this is an adventure, right, we still got a home too. And it's, we really miss our families a lot.
Typically, this is the hardest part of a submarine family's life. The Georgia is preparing to depart on patrol today. When they say goodbye in a couple of hours' time, her crew and their families will not see each other for 3 months.
There's a lot of sadness. He's been in for almost 14 years, and
kind of get used to it, but then you don't. And then it'll probably hit me tonight that, oh, I'm going to be by myself with these two.
Fortunately, I was home for every one of my children being born, but I was gone shortly after. And I'd leave home and they might be a month old, and I'd come back and they'd be 4 or 5 months old. And in some cases, 6, 7 months old. That's just real hard, missing the children growing up.
I lose my dad almost every year, and he's gone anywhere from a couple of weeks to 6 months. And other people talk about, well, I was with my dad and I did this, and I say, well, my dad's at sea again. So it's hard.
Patrol that they go on. This time we took some lingerie of ours and sprayed them with our perfume and put them in little Ziploc bags. They're going to put it all over their boardroom, and I guess they're going to try to guess whose is whose. And
The lingerie is going to come out just before they come home to remind them what they're coming home to.
I think the perfume and the lingerie will do it.
Leaving the family is really hard.
An hour after the Georgia has pulled away from the wharf, she must pass through this floating bridge on her way to open sea and her patrol area. For wives and families, it's the last glimpse of the submarine with their men on board. And by tradition, some gather here for a final farewell.
have to be really mature to be able to survive in the submarine fleet. It's really an elite force, and I felt like I wanted to be a part of that.
Somewhere, hundreds of feet below the eastern Pacific, the crew of the USS Topeka is being called away to battle stations after picking up a contact on their sonar. They will maneuver into position to fire a torpedo. Submariners always operate as though they're actually at war. From Commander Jablonski to the most junior enlisted man, they are here by choice. Their training is as rigorous as any in the armed forces. It begins right after boot camp.
Morning, gentlemen. Rise and shine. Let's go. Roll out. 5:30 in the morning. Let's go. Wake Sleeping Beauty up down there. Everybody awake. Let's go. Wake your shipmates up.
Aged between 17 and 25, these young men are beginning an intensive 6-week course. At the end of it, if they pass the weekly test, they could find themselves at the controls of a billion-dollar nuclear submarine.
Look, Mom, no hands. Look, Mom, no brains.
Across the world, another submarine goes to action stations. A Russian Typhoon is preparing to dive. Taking the world's largest submarine beneath the water requires immense precision and teamwork. 20 years ago, Captain Zhiguliov started his training at the Dzerzhinsky College of Naval Engineering. In Russia, 2 years military training is still compulsory, but you can select the service in which you'll train. Many choose submarines from a sense of family tradition, but some of the 2,000 trainees here will join the surface fleet.
21-я рота, выйти построиться в коридор.
Russia has a proud naval tradition dating from the time of Peter the Great, who commissioned an experimental submarine in 1719. Here in St. Petersburg, he laid the foundation for what was to become the largest submarine force in the world. The school in which these cadets train is located in the old Admiralty, built by Peter nearly 300 years ago. In the course of the Cold War, nuclear submarines became one of the principal pillars of Soviet strategic doctrine. But the diesel-electrics which fought their campaigns in both world wars still form a major part of their fleet. These museum pieces are not far removed from submarines on which some of these trainees will serve. While the U.S. force is religiously nuclear, its submarines designed to hunt for or hide from the Russians, Soviet interests have included confined waterways, more suited to the capabilities of diesel boats like this Foxtrot. At 10 submarine academies across the former Soviet Union, courses are conducted in both technologies. They are hard to get into, easy to fail, and the demands are intense. As well as becoming familiar with reactor rooms, control rooms, and communication centers, the trainee will have his nerve tested in simulators. These students are practicing how to plunge their boat into a crash dive. It may look antiquated, but the trainees' response to such an emergency must become second nature for the day when they face the real thing.
Принять главный балласт, время среднее.
Двигай инфляцию средней.
For the trainee, the principles of submerging and surfacing apply as much to the Foxtrot as to the 24,000-ton Typhoon. But there, the similarity ends. Learning to drive this submersible mountain is only part of the story. When your boat contains unimaginable explosive power, as well as a couple of nuclear reactors the size of a bus, safety is everything.
Товарищ командир, личный состав корабля на подъем военно-морского флага построен.
The most dangerous thing is unprofessionalism and a lack of expertise among the crew. It only takes one person on a boat who's an amateur, and the situation's fraught with dire consequences.
A submarine is not simply a hollow cylinder. It is divided into various compartments, like the engineering and propulsion plant, weapons spaces, the control center, and living quarters. Each must be capable of being sealed off, because each is vulnerable to two major threats.
The two great fears of submariners are, of course, fire and flood. Fire because you're in an enclosed space and even a smouldering rag can fill a compartment with smoke within a matter of moments. And, of course, you can't get rid of that smoke. You can contain it, but you can't get rid of it unless you get up to the surface and ventilate the compartment out. So fire is the really serious threat. Flooding, well, the noise of running water, one of the first things you're trained on training classes is you always run towards the sound of running water.
Each time they perform this basic drill, the water will get deeper and colder until finally they can stop the leak even in the dark. But at operating depths, the ocean would enter with the force of a steel rod, smashing anything in its path.
You can become concerned over a long submarine career, and I think most people do, at some stage, as you settle into your bed at night, nestling alongside the pressure hull, and 1 inch away from you, of course, is 1,000 feet pressure of water.
Well, I think they need to set tougher conditions because the exercise is simple to perform.
It's relevant only to shallow depths. You couldn't do this to save your ship at great depths.
But the exercise is good for getting over that psychological barrier. It is mental training.
These cadets are about to face a simulated engine room fire. They must isolate and control it as quickly as possible, for even a short delay could jeopardize lives and possibly the ship. It's a straightforward, almost routine exercise, but it holds particular relevance for the Russians. They have lost sailors and nuclear submarines to fires, some very recently.
The Russian submarine, the Mike class, the Komsomolets, which sunk in the Norwegian Sea a couple of years ago, was destroyed by fire. And the Yankee-class strategic submarine that sank off Bermuda, almost certainly, again, it was fire that got out of control.
Norwegian defense forces were tracking and photographing the Soviet submarine before the fire and before it went down.
So I think there is a question mark over the Soviet firefighting capability as it has been demonstrated in the last 5 years.
We believe, based on the Soviet Mike submarine sinking, part of their problem was the fact that the crew got exhausted before they could solve the damage control problems they were faced with, and they ultimately lost the ship.
Aware of the potentially catastrophic results of such emergencies, all nuclear navies reject criticism of their safety standards.
The Titanic was the unsinkable ship, but it sunk. Things do go wrong. Accidents have happened. The Americans have lost 2 nuclear-powered submarines at sea. The Soviets have lost possibly up to 7 nuclear-powered submarines at sea. The last one being a couple of years ago, the Mike class off of Norway.
These fifth-year cadets face the immediate prospect of service in a military with a poor record of nuclear safety. Though information has been scarce, senior officers admit that there are problems.
It is not surprising that accidents occur on board American ships and on board Soviet ships, and they are related in the first instance to the fact that the level of training lags behind the adaptation to new technology.
Nuclear accidents on board submarines, like the one described in this film, are bad enough. But 40 years of nuclear power have produced a deadly legacy.
So what's happening in the Soviet Union is that these Soviet submarines are just stockpiling up. When you go to the big ports like Serodinsk, Seromorsk, you find that there are defunct submarines just laying there. No one knows what to do with them.
With more to decommission than anyone else, the Russians have the biggest problem, but they're not alone. None of the nuclear navies knows how to dispose of a worn-out nuclear submarine.
The sensible, rational, scientific solution would be to take it out into deep water and sink it. It would then give off less radiation than the average granite outcrop in places, for instance, like Aberdeen in Scotland.
What you put in the ocean today stays there. You can't take a vacuum cleaner to the ocean and clean up the mess in 10 years' time because you found out new information about the radiation dose effects.
These recruits follow in the footsteps of 6,000 submarine engineers who've trained here in Pushkin. And in Groton, 50 new recruits start training every week.
Here we go again! Here we go again! Same old song again! Same old song again! Marching down the avenue! Marching down the avenue! 2 more weeks and we'll be through! 2 more weeks and we'll be through! I won't have to look at you! I won't have to look at you! Am I right? Am I right? Am I right or wrong? Right. Are we weak?
First thing I want to do is welcome you to the submarine force. If you're wondering and asking yourself, am I where I belong? The answer is yes. You're going to get the best training the Navy has to offer in the submarine force. No BS.
They say you gotta have 4 eggs, but I don't know.
This base is called the heart of the submarine force, and it is. I know that might sound a little corny, but it is. I mean, every submariner starts here, and he will at some time be back here.
Submariners have been training at Groton since 1916.
The most complex, the most compact, the most deadly ship of war, ton for ton, ever conceived by man is the submarine. No training is more rigid, no training more intense than that of the submariner, who must fight his battles imprisoned in a carcass of steel, sailing in the deeps of the world's water basins.
The purpose of this school is to screen you guys. We're going to do that several ways. We're going to look at you academically, we're going to look at you environmentally, and we're going to look at you militarily.
I've been telling you this since last week. I'm not listening to it anymore. I'm not going to listen to myself talk. If somebody's got a stencil kit here, share it, use it.
We want them to start taking responsibility for themselves, because a lot of them It's their first time away from home. Mama's not here to lay out their clothes for them in the morning and stuff anymore.
You look good. Thank you, Chief.
The classes load them with information, all of which they must retain to graduate. It's a crash course, and only the motivated survive.
The trim pump, we've got this thing called a cord. It's a muffler.
Being able to pack all this information, they throw a lot of stuff at us in this short period of time, and they make us learn it all.
All right, how many people in here want to go to an SSBN? That is your first choice of duty, SSBN. Put your hands up.
But they can choose what kind of submarine they want to serve on. Some choose an SSN, the Fast Attack or Hunter-Killer submarine. Its varied missions, including stalking other submarines and covert operations, seem to promise adventure. Others prefer the SSBN, the Strategic Ballistic Missile Submarine, the floating hotel with its regular routine of deterrent patrols. This class of submarine is almost constantly at sea, manned by alternating crews.
Keep the watch. Emergency blow, emergency service.
Whichever submarine they choose, the trainees must learn to drive it, to turn thousands of tons around within 4 times its length, and to ascend and descend at a rate of several hundred feet per minute. They learn on a simulator they call Dive and Drive.
I'm really nervous about this now. I've never done this before. I did it once, but...
In real life, you watch out because sometimes you lose the indications. Sometimes you may only lose one of the indications. Make sure you call what it is. You need to let us know that there's a problem first.
Yeah, let people know, get the word out, right? And every casualty, get the word out. Their stern planes are stuck or jammed on full dive or 25 dive, okay? What are you going to say?
Stern planes jammed at 15-degree dive.
Now, do you think they heard you back there? Did you guys hear that? What did you say? Didn't hear that.
Stern planes jammed at 15-degree dive.
Okay, that's a little better. Okay, manly and commanding, that's the key here.
Your first couple times, you're very nervous, especially if you're the man in charge and stuff, but after a while, you get used to it. And that's how you survive, though. If you have a casualty, you need to be ready to handle it. And you're going to fight a casualty the way you train to fight a casualty. You're not going to do it correctly if you've never practiced. So, submarining is stressful.
Do you understand the bubble? What is it showing you right now?
This?
What angle is the ship at?
It's not a perfect trim.
Oh, you got that right. What's the number? What degrees of dive do we have on right now, bubble on the ship?
5.
No.
First time I was doing it, I was trying to concentrate so much on actually maintaining control and things like that. And then midway through the training simulation, I just said, hey, might as well enjoy it now. This is the best it's going to get.
Diving officer, submerge the ship to 150 feet.
Dive! 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 Dive!
It's been said that American submarines are overmanned and underautomated. In theory, that may be true, until something goes wrong under 50 feet of Arctic ice.
That are stressful. We got a building that simulates part of the engine room. We're going to set it on fire. And you guys put it out. You guys. Not John Wayne, not Chuck Norris. You guys.
Space burning out of control! Make sure your OJ is perpendicular to the hose. Bring your hand around, down and under. Put it on the outside of your shoulder. There you go.
When something goes wrong, you need people who can figure it out very quickly, take the appropriate action, and maybe combat the casualty for long periods of time.
Okay, go to front of the three.
Also in week 5, we're going to send you what we call the wet trainer. Its technical name is the damage control trainer. We just call it the wet trainer because you're going to get wet.
Obviously, this
It simulates part of the engine room on a submarine. Lower level this time, not upper level.
Facing forward.
It's full of pipes, valves, pumps, motors. The instructor, he has it nice. He sits in a little glass booth. He stays nice and dry. He flips switches, and all the water in the world starts coming into that trainer.
You all heard the horror stories about the flange. It's located, it's got a 3/4 inch gap in between the two faces. It's a metal-to-metal surface. Your job is to actually tighten up the bolts, bringing the two surfaces together.
If you were on a submarine and there's no switch thrown then, but the water starts coming in, it is all the water in the world. It's the ocean.
1,200 gallons per minute. It's the largest leak that you'll be facing in here.
You guys don't stop it, it gets deep. If you're a short guy, you're going to be real interested in getting it stopped quicker than the tall guys will.
Fighting a casualty is no place for individual heroics. Teamwork is the key. The instructor monitors the exercise, communicating with the team leader through an airphone.
How many personnel are in the space? How many personnel are in engine room lower level?
Wait one.
Wait, I. Where you going? Get out of there.
There's one guy up there on this side standing and holding right. You
go up there.
These men might be enjoying this spectacle now, but it's their turn next.
Oh my God.
The pressure is relentlessly increased.
Go ahead and give me the ASW discharge flange.
Which one? What's the system? Suction or discharge? Need 2 personnel on the flange. Get them up there. He's the man in charge.
I think he's crawling up there. Is that the man in charge crawling up there now?
That's the man in charge right here. We want to see if they're physically and mentally capable of handling a stressful situation that we put them in with just the water spraying around everywhere, and see if they can actually handle it, be able to work in that kind of environment. If they have a problem working in the water, well then we need to know about it, because if they go onto a submarine and they get faced with this situation, it could be detrimental to themselves and personnel around them.
These exercises test psychological suitability more than practical skills. They will come later.
The real training starts for them when they get on their boat. The guy's really going to learn the nuts and bolts of the system, be able to touch the valves, trace the pipe, look at the breakers, see his gear, work on his gear when he gets to the submarine.
Petty Officer Torkelson, Petty Officer Whipple, Mostadler, front and center. And salute. Ready, 2.
All of these men have achieved the award about to be presented to their shipmates, their dolphins. Silver for the enlisted men and gold for the officers. They're like a pilot's wings and just as hard to earn. To qualify, the raw submariner must learn every major system on board, be able to describe how it works, draw it, and recite its specifications. All this on a boat with 7 million parts. It marks the coming of age of a submariner and the end of a tough first year on board. In all submarine fleets, junior officers aspire to one thing above all others: to captain their own submarine. It remains one of the most challenging of commands.
If there's one thing that we've learned, and I think that the United States Navy has learned as well, a submarine commanding officer cannot have a rule book. Okay, sure, there are some things which he can't do and some things which he must do, but he can't have a rule book. There is no set tactic or set thing to do in such and such a circumstance. He must use his own initiative and adapt very quickly in split seconds to what's happening.
At first, the Royal Navy did not believe it necessary to train its submarine captains. A good eye for shooting partridge was considered qualification enough.
This is the submarine command team trainer, where basically the submarine officers come in here to learn the basic skills of being a submarine officer.
Operators collect information from many sensors, keeping the captain informed. Piecing the picture together enables him to make the tactical decisions in fighting the submarine.
Very similar to a medieval knight on a hill. The captain can sit there, he can look over the top of these young men, and they will get all that information and, like a jigsaw, put all the bits in.
But for a true sense of the pressure involved, there's nothing like the real thing.
30 miles outside Glasgow, a Royal Naval frigate is charging straight towards a Royal Naval submarine.
Bracery on the black hand, up!
This man wants to captain a submarine.
Check ATB. Down! Bracery on the right wing, get out of the way! Up! Now put me 25 starboard.
This man must decide whether he's capable of doing so.
Look at the ball, 2 minutes.
A British commanding officer is trained in what's known as the Perisher course. A Perisher derives from an old expression, periscope school. But as a matter of fact, it's not such a bad expression, because a lot of people perish along the way.
No, get me up, down. Come on, engineer, there's some speed.
It's an utterly ruthless preparation for command, totally ruthless. And being British, we're more used to people being rude to us, very rude to us, than I think people are in the United States Navy as a whole.
Come on, engineer.
Engineer, you're going to go and put up your arse if you don't get this boat on depth.
Very, very brutal. A lot of people fail. But at the end of it, you come out tough and able to face any tactical situation on your own, without support, and take full responsibility for it. I'm not saying that's not true of United States naval officers as well, but it's my opinion that they were more inclined, certainly in the early days of nuclear power, to look back aft at that big kettle boiling up back there than they were to look forward to their torpedo tubes and the enemy ahead.
Submarine captains can polish their skills in the calmer atmosphere of the attack teacher. Computer scenarios simulate potential do-or-die situations.
Deck, take her deep. Look valve clear to the right. Helm, head 2/3.
Head 2/3, Helm. Sounding 150 fathoms below the keel. Check the chart.
Helm, right 10 degrees rudder. Listen up in the fire control party. Just received flash traffic due to the deteriorating political situation in the Orange Republic and their perception of our disarmament. The Orange Republic has launched attack against the United States. A hot war exists. We're open ocean. Received traffic indicating an Orange submarine is entering our area from the west. We've received orders to prosecute and attack any enemy forces in our area. Any questions? Carry on.
The Navy has this idea and policy and tradition of true accountability, 100% accountability to the captain of a ship. He is responsible for the way the garbage is dumped all the way up to the way the torpedo is shot or the guns are shot.
Annapolis is the premier officer training academy for the U.S. Navy. The courses are heavy in nuclear science, but some say too light in humanities and the art of war.
Next, you see the 41st and last of the Polaris submarines. I'm a little bit biased toward this submarine myself because, frankly, I was the first skipper of it.
In their final year, the midshipmen are addressed by senior officers. It's a recruitment exercise. Their example might inspire the fledgling officers to share their passion.
Following that, in the motif of any place, any time, Here's a USS Archer fish. Given some qualities that I would look for is first, you got to know your job. You got to know your stuff. You got to know your weapons. You got to know your ship.
We have a very small bearing rate indicating that the contact is either distant or that we're on a lead, possible overlead line of sight. Range 10 to 12,000 yards. Carry on.
Stand by to mark minute 3-2.
The good skippers I had when I was young allowed me to make torpedo approaches, to make landings when only skippers were making landings. And when you're going in with a current either against you or with you, and you've got to kind of shoot the thing on the fly. Well, sometimes you hit the pier pretty hard. Sometimes the pier almost goes over. Some people have hit their own automobile at the head of the pier. But these are things that really give you great confidence when you're the person doing it.
Helm, steady course, 3, 4, 5.
Steady course 3, 4, 5, on mine.
We close 2,000 yards. Aye.
Mark 256.6.
Copy 1.
Under the captain's eye, the team maneuvers into the best position to fire.
Here's the best solution from prime mate.
There are certain things that you have to be vitally interested in and involved in, and one of them is safe navigation of the ship. You must not run aground. The other one is safe navigation pertains to hitting another ship. You will not have a collision. Either one of those can ruin your whole day, not to mention a career.
As well as technical training, there are other vital qualities, less tangible, but still essential for successful command.
The attributes of leadership that I think are essential combine management competence with enough charisma that one can inspire people to follow. The responsibility of commanding a submarine is rather unique, best described in short terms as run silent, run deep. One is totally alone, far less subject to the kind of minute-by-minute guidance that a surface commander is likely to be in a task force, particularly when one commands a ballistic missile submarine with the awesome responsibility of not only ensuring that there is never an accident or never an accidental launch, but that the machine is in instant readiness to fire when directed, requires a tremendous attention to detail, a tremendous sense of teamsmanship.
Get on my back. Lie flat on me. Put your feet on my feet. Don't kiss me on the ear.
Even at 70 years of age, you can still have the right stuff.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There are some old adages that some people print up and put around, like know your stuff, be a man, take care of your men. And that's not too bad. I mean, you've got to take care of your crew, you got to know your crew, you got to be human, and you got to be able to laugh at your mistakes, because you're going to make them. All your people are going to make them, and you may make the most colossal ones. So if you've been smiling at them, maybe you can laugh at yourself a little bit.
Yeah, man. Just for a glass of 92. No, you're out.
Well, it gives you something to work on. Okay.
So you got firing solution? Yeah, firing solution. Very well. Firing point procedure is Sierra 2, Tube 3, single fire ad cap.
The climax of the hunt, but the atmosphere in the control center remains low-key and disciplined.
Solution ready. Solution ready. Shoot on generated bearing. Set. Stand by. Fire.
Torpedo course 132. Runs enabled. 6,000 yards.
Just pick up on shift unit running. Very well, running normally. Shot looks good.
2,000 yards to torpedo enabled. Bearing 125, range 900 yards. Target is going 110, speed 10 knots. 125.1.
Terminal humming. Loud explosion on the bearing of Sierra 1. We got our quarry. We'll open datum and look out for any companions. Oh, this was a very successful attack. We acquired the contact. The target did not counter-detect us. We controlled the tactical situation throughout. We attained an optimum firing position where we could attack him with impunity. We were at the perfect weapons range, perfect solution. We probably wasted too much time making the solution too good. The torpedo functioned properly, acquired the contact when it should have, and exploded. We're just waiting for the breaking up noises.
Torpedoes are not the only weapons a hunter-killer captain trains to fire, as was demonstrated during Desert Storm. No U.S. submarine had fired in combat since World War II.
I'm speaking to you next to one of the Tomahawk vertical launch hatches forward on the ship, out of which came the Tomahawk, which on the 19th of January 1991 was fired by this ship to an unidentified Iraqi target.
The use of cruise missiles by the Louisville expanded the submarine's role into the realm of strike warfare. Its crew received a triumphant homecoming.
And we were greeted by a special edition Louisville Slugger back. It says Louisville Slugger, the ship's hull number SSN 724, and over here in the periscope crosshairs, kicked Saddam's butt January 19th, 1991.
The prime responsibility of command is the nuclear reactor, according to its high priest, Admiral Rickover. But a submarine's purpose involves more than just intimate knowledge of its propulsion.
Admiral Rickover made a big point of you can't get there if the power plant doesn't get you there, and that's right. But the name of the game is being able to fight a war, to win a battle. And you've got to develop your tactics.
We have chosen in the Royal Navy to continue focusing on tactics, what you do with a sharp end, and to let an extremely well-trained specialist, a technical guy, to look after the kettle back aft.
We run things a bit differently from the British, for example, where the officers in the Royal Navy are engineering specialists or operational tactics specialists, and we are trained to be good at both ends.
It doesn't mean to say that our commanding officers know nothing about nuclear power. They know a very, very great deal about it. Indeed they do. But they don't feel that they have to be technical to the degree that a United States naval officer feels he has to be. Indeed has to be under the regime which Admiral Rickover started.
If you're on your way to a nuclear engineering exam, tradition claims this will bring you luck. Such is the Admiral's legacy. But whether propulsion or tactics are more important in nuclear submarine warfare has only been tested once.
Having attacked, well, normally in the attack teacher, we'd all stop and have a cup of tea and a smoke or something, but it wasn't quite like that at sea.
The only submarine commander to have sunk a warship with a nuclear submarine is this man.
During the actual attack, it was very much like countless other ones I'd done for practice before, both at sea on live targets and indeed in our attack teacher.
HMS Conqueror was sent to the Falklands in April 1982. The British were reacting to an invasion of their territory by Argentina. In what was to become the most controversial incident of the brief war, Reeford Brown quickly made sonar contact with a group of Argentinian warships.
I entered my patrol area to the southwest of Falkland Islands on the evening of the 30th of April, and having settled down to patrol, I quite rapidly gained detection on one of my sonars.
The General Belgrano was an aging cruiser with more than 1,000 men aboard. Much was to be made of her movements immediately prior to the attack.
We spent the whole of that night just following them from deep, which is not particularly difficult for an SSN, sending locating reports back, I think about every 6 hours or so.
The British had declared a total exclusion zone, but the Belgrano was outside it and could not be attacked. So Reeford Brown followed her and waited for instructions.
I had quite a lot of time in my cabin to actually think how I was going to conduct the attack. I mean, I felt in my own mind that at some stage Northwood, our command back here, would actually instruct me to carry out the attack. And I chose which torpedo I was going to use. I also, in my own mind, worked out where I was going to position myself. So there was some mental preparation.
After trailing the Belgrano for more than 25 hours, the Conqueror received new orders from Whitehall. Sink it.
I was some 7 miles astern of them, and it took me about 2 hours to catch them up and work into an attacking position. I'd selected the Mark 8 torpedo to fire, and I planned to fire a salvo of 3 of those to counteract for any errors that I made in the fire control solution. I worked myself into a position of, well, when we eventually fired, I was about 1,400 yards on the port bow of the cruiser. Gave the order to fire. We heard the torpedoes run on our underwater sonar. Could hear them quite distinctly running out, and indeed heard one and then another hit. I was looking through the periscope at the time and saw a distinct cloud of smoke and flame from the first one, and then I think I saw another cloud of smoke from the second. A cheer went up in the control room, I think, when we heard the hit, and I looked around and saw actually there was a lot more people in every corner than one perhaps anticipated at attack stations. After that, I went deep and moved away to the east to just get out of the general area, because I wasn't quite sure what the 2 destroyers were going to do, whether they're going to come and take an interest in me and try and counterattack.
The Conqueror returned home to fierce debate over the decision to sink the Belgrano, echoing an earlier era when submarines were regarded as underhand and immoral.
She was a threat to the task force. She'd been steaming towards them, and I'd been watching her for a few hours beforehand, and under direct orders I went in and attacked her. I think by doing so, although there was obviously loss of life on her, which I regret, I certainly saved considerable loss of life from the British task force.
I was obviously aware that I'd actually killed, I don't know how many, and didn't know for a long time, but quite a few people. So there was a certain sense of concern that had happened. Nevertheless, as far as I was concerned, as far as the ship's company was concerned, we were at war. My immediate reactions after that was, I think the first one was one of relief that I'd actually achieved something that the ship's company and I had been trained to do over a number of years, all of us, and a sense of exhilaration that I'd actually achieved it.
Once upon a time, to be in submarines marked you as inferior, an undersea pirate. But over 100 years of submarine warfare have created a community which now regards itself as an elite. The recruits in Groton and St. Petersburg will become part of this tradition.
Inherited from our submariners, specifically our World War II submariners, a mindset, a way of life, a commitment that is unmatched anywhere in the world.
guys. I mean, it's like your family. I'm not going to lie. There's probably a lot of submariners out there that are going to watch this and say that, oh, that's BS. But I mean, it really isn't. I mean, you can ask them. I wouldn't trade any memories I have on this thing or any of my friends I have on this thing for anything in the world. They're good. They're good people.
In an era where the enemy is no longer as clearly defined, and where moves toward disarmament will continue to reduce the submarine's importance, their prohibitive cost is becoming harder to justify. Yet should a new world conflict arise, it will be in the hands of young men like these. For now, more than ever, such a war is likely to be won and lost under the sea.
Lights out! Lights out! Everybody in Iraq! Not in Iraq, you are wrong! Shut up!
I am acutely aware if I ever have to launch these missiles, devastation on an unimaginable scale will occur.
Man Battle Stations missile for WSRT, spin up all missiles.
Any nation seeing ballistic missiles coming in, I reckon, is bound to say fire back, and that is the end of the world. The end of the world.
That is the whole idea of this machine, you know. Deterrence is the art of producing in the mind of the enemy the fear to attack.
One away.
One away. One away.
Submarines have always been shrouded in secrecy, their movements mysterious, their capabilities undisclosed, unseen, unheard, undiscussed.
The principal weapon of a submarine is stealth. Nobody can hear it, hopefully. Nobody can see it, certainly. Stealth. Coming up and surprising your enemy before he has any idea you're there.
This is the USS Georgia, an Ohio-class ballistic missile nuclear submarine. It is submarines like this which defined the balance between the superpowers throughout the Cold War. That era may be over, but their purpose has not changed. The Georgia contains more explosive power than has ever been unleashed in all of history. More than 1,000 Hiroshimas in one steel hull. They call her a boomer. She is also the longest submarine in the world. But if the ocean were transparent, this is what you would see. Like her sister ship, Georgia, the Alaska is more than 4 stories high, almost 2 football fields in length. And when she's submerged, she displaces more than 18,000 tons of water. The hull is built on an enormous scale, but for a very good reason. It's designed to hold 24 Trident ballistic missiles, each one 40 feet long, and capable of carrying up to 14 independently targeted nuclear warheads. The missile deck. The crew call it Sherwood Forest. Everything on the submarine is designed to maintain the well-being and readiness of the missiles inside these tubes. They are monitored around the clock. Fortunately, the missiles are comfortable in conditions which also agree with their guardians. Petty Officer Second Class James McCune is doing his daily run around Sherwood Forest. It's his way of keeping fit during a 3-month patrol while they are constantly submerged. 19 times around the tubes is 1 mile. 435 times a marathon. Keeping these missiles in a state of constant readiness is the ultimate responsibility of one man. At 49, Captain Richard Raz is one of the U.S. Navy's most experienced submarine commanders.
I always tell my crew, guys, if I don't chew on these, I'll be chewing on you, so they don't complain too much. I have reformed the modern Navy. I don't smoke below decks. I only smoke outside, and that's pretty infrequent in a submarine, once every 100 days. The purpose of a boomer is to provide strategic deterrence for the United States. My mission is actually quite simple. Be ready to launch these missiles when directed with little or no probability of anybody's interfering with that action. We do that by remaining undetected, at sea, covert, unlocated by anybody.
The whereabouts of Captain Raz and the Georgia may be unknown, but they're certainly not alone out there. There's a similar submarine hiding in the ocean, and it's even bigger. Captain Andrei Zhiguliov drives the biggest submarine in the world. Welcome to the Typhoon. Ocean Fleet. An awesome submarine. She has two of just about everything. Twin hulls, 2 nuclear reactors, 2 propellers, and 20 ballistic missiles, which can also hit their targets from anywhere in the world. Her name is still a state secret, even though the two navies are opening up to each other for the first time in 50 years.
Look at this. It's a big devil. It's twice the breadth almost, it's 75 feet across, compared to 42 for Trident. I exclaimed in rather profane language about what type of a mountain it was. This was then interpreted to the Russians, who roared laughing. That's the captain, 39 years old. He had been skipper of this ship for 3 years and expected 2 more years, the son of an admiral, and all he had ever been in his whole time in the Navy is nuclear, missile, as he called them, submarines.
The decision to employ ballistic missiles is taken at the highest level by the country's president and government. I am prepared to carry out any order given by my government.
In my mind, the Russians, in spite, decided to build the biggest damn submarine in the world. We had one that was so big, they'd go bigger.
Despite arms reduction, the Americans still have 18 Ohios and the Russians 6 Typhoons. But both have many other ballistic missile submarines. The figures are chilling. They call it mutually assured destruction. It is the basis of deterrence.
I assure you that if the President and the National Command Authority direct me to launch these missiles, they're going to fly.
Once the Georgia submerges and goes on patrol, she will not surface again for up to 3 months. She will spend her time avoiding any contact, her precise whereabouts unknown, even to United States forces. As deep as 1,000 feet, the submarine is deliberately cut off from the world. Communication is mostly one way. The submarine awaits orders from the National Command Authority, but seldom responds for fear of betraying her position. The crew remains on constant alert, ready to launch the missiles within minutes of receiving an order.
Con radio emergency action message is an authenticator test. Recommend alert 1.
Radio Con I.
Once an emergency action message is received, it is passed to 2 officers who must decode it together.
Alpha, Alpha, Alpha.
To do so, they must get sealed codes from a safe within a safe. Only a few officers know the combination of each safe. No one knows both numbers, which are never committed to paper.
Authentication required. Okay, we need to get the authenticator out of the safe. You'll have to leave. You're not authorized to be in here while the safes are open.
No one, not even the captain, is allowed to be in this room alone, ever.
Captain, we have a properly formatted emergency action message. Request mission to authenticate, sir.
I concur, sir.
Authenticate.
Authenticate, aye, sir. Authentication is...
4 officers must now agree if the codes match those on the message. If so, they know a launch has been ordered.
Delta, Charlie, Bravo, Alpha.
Sir, the message authenticates.
I concur, Captain.
Message is authentic.
I concur, Captain.
Officer deck, man battle stations missile for WSRT, spin up all missiles.
Man battle stations missile for WSRT, spin up all
The captain places his launch key, also kept in the safe, around his neck.
Watch on general alarm.
Got general alarm, aye, sir. Rock, still.
Missile, WSRT.
Weapons con, the following missiles will be released 1 through 24.
Weapons con, the following missiles will be released 1 through 24, aye, sir. Weapons con, the following missiles will be released 1 through 24.
Set condition, 1 SQ for WSRT.
Captain issues launch orders, which are repeated exactly by the executive officer. The weapons officer must recognize both voices before continuing the procedure.
Weapons con, simulate pressurizing release tubes to ordered launch depth.
Simulate pressurized release tubes to ordered launch depth, aye, sir. Weapons con, simulate pressurizing release tubes to ordered launch depth.
Pressurizing 1 through 6, 13, 15 through 18. Order launch.
Inside this safe is the nuclear weapons trigger, the final link in the launch circuit.
Extend navigation flight control transmission checks completed satisfactory. Weapons con aye. Transmission checks completed satisfactorily. Weapons standby.
Each step of the procedure is dictated strictly according to the launch manual.
Nav con aye. Weapon system condition 1 SQ.
Very well.
The captain inserts his key, giving the final signal to launch.
Weapons con, you have permission to fire.
Weapons con, you have permission to fire, aye, sir. Weapons con, you have permission to fire.
When we're on patrol and we get messages in of an alert one, it's something that happens all the time. We get them all the time. You never know. Is this the real one? Is this just a training one? Fortunately, we've had all training. We never know when the real one's going to come. While we're out here, we're pretty isolated.
Supervisor, initiate countdown.
Initiate countdown, aye. To note 1, to note 13.
We go through the motions because history has shown that you fight the way you practice. So if the world situation were to change, you'd see a big change in the attitude of the crew, but we'd still do what we were trained to do.
If it was for real, it'd be probably a lot quieter, a lot more tense. It'd go the same way, though.
Prepare 1.
Prepare 1.
No one wants to destroy a whole civilization or the whole planet, because I think we all know that that's what it would come to if we launched all our weapons.
But in order for deterrence to work, we have to be willing to do that if we're called upon by our government to do so. And I believe all of us are willing to do that.
To note 2. To note 2.
We've been trained, so we do our job like we're supposed to, and hope our government knows what they're doing.
10. One away. One away.
If the firing trigger has been closed and the missile has started a launch, I cannot stop it, and it cannot be stopped en route to the target. Those missiles will arrive and they will detonate.
13 away. Prepare 2. 2 away.
6 to 1 gag. 2-1 gag.
14.
It's not like a movie like Dr. Strangelove where some computer's making a decision.
All of the people involved with the handling of these weapons are carefully screened, carefully monitored, continuously evaluated for their performance, for their stability. And I have to tell you, at the first sign of a weakness, we remove that individual from their responsibilities for the weapons. We are not obligated to allow someone who's having a bad day to continue on. Even if the individual who was having a bad day was the captain, I cannot get to a missile alone. I cannot even get to my launch key alone. My superiors, my executive officer, my weapons officer, my whole crew would know that something is wrong. They all have to participate in the sequence to launch. I can't do it alone.
Today, the submarine is linked with nuclear deterrence. But long before nuclear weapons, the submarine itself was a deterrent. Like a shark, you don't have to see it to believe it might be there.
This doesn't look much like a submarine, but in fact, well over 2 centuries ago, it was able to make the very first submarine attack.
It was called the Turtle and was used to strike at the British fleet during the War of Independence. It was primitive and dangerous, but its inventor was on the right track.
There was a valve here for flooding the main ballast tank under us with water and diving the boat. There was a pump here for pumping the ballast tank out again and letting it come up. The propulsion was by the pilot, a one-man boat, of course. The pilot sat and pedaled these pedals here, which in turn rotated the propeller.
Quaint as it might appear, the Turtle was designed to sink a ship. And for that, it had an extraordinary weapon system connected to this pointed screw or auger.
You see a sort of pointed thing at the top, like a screw, and the idea was to get under the ship he was attacking and drive home this auger. He had a lot of work to do, into the wooden hull above, because of course they were wooden ships in those days, and to that auger was attached a delayed action mine.
Although the attempt failed, a potentially lethal threat was born.
It was the first idea of submarine deterrence. That is, that a very small, underwater, covert threat could scare the pants off a very much more powerful fleet.
The idea of traveling underwater has always been associated with deviousness and stealth. Even Leonardo da Vinci is said to have refused to commit plans for a submersible craft of paper because of the evil nature of men who practice assassination at the bottom of the sea. Small wonder that early pioneers had to combat the belief that undersea warfare was immoral and reprehensible.
Way back in 1898, John Philip Holland, the father of all modern submarines, was attacked by Dame Clara Barton, the founder of the American Red Cross, when she saw around his little submarine. And she said, "Mr. Holland, you created the most dreadful weapon of war," and went on to say how ashamed he should be of himself. And he said, "Madam, on the contrary, I have created the device whereby war may be prevented." Today he would have said deterred.
With idealistic names like Protector and Peacemaker, inventors tried to improve the submarine's image. But in 2 world wars, it was to prove a far more effective assassin than Peacemaker. Propulsion was no longer by pedals, pumps, or in one case, rubber bands. As Jules Verne had predicted with his mythical Nautilus, electricity was the key. It was stored in batteries for use when submerged, but the early engines which generated it were clumsy and dangerous. What was to transform the submarine into such a potent hunter-killer was the reliability of the diesel engine.
We're in the engine room with these 2 gigantic diesels. Here are the starting controls and speed controls. And you can only run these diesels on the surface or snorkeling because they use a lot of air. And where you and I are standing now, we'd be in a howling gale if we were running these gigantic rock crushers, as they're called. You can see why. They look pretty crude, but they're rugged. And they can be mended at sea. We had to do our own repairs. There's no garage to stop in if you're 5,000 miles from home. And you had to be very quick on shutting these engines down if and when you dive. You've got perhaps a couple of seconds, no more, to shut these valves, otherwise water comes back in, and that's very bad news to the engines themselves. Very noisy engines. They made me deaf anyway. I can't hear a thing above 1,000 hertz. But when you're dived, you have to go to main motors supplied by the battery. That doesn't use any air. So you go to main motors. These look very crude controls by comparison with a modern press button affair, but they're solid. You know exactly what's going to happen, and they're not going to jump out under a depth charge attack. For both world wars, submarines were no more than submersible torpedo boats. Let's compare those diesel-electric submarines with whales. Now, we all know that whales have to come up to breathe and also to vent their fouling. Now, a nuclear submarine is not a whale at all. It's not a mammal. It's a true shark.
At Groton, Connecticut, a new naval era dawns with the launching of the Nautilus, one of the largest submarines ever built, and the first atomic-powered craft in history. It may well initiate a revolution in naval warfare. Mrs. Eisenhower christens it with a valiant blow.
The nuclear submarine was a technological revolution. Greater mobility was the perfect weapon in an uncertain world. Fear and suspicion dominated east and west. Each side convinced the other was plotting its destruction.
Nautilus heralds a new era of the atomic age.
I'm no communist, and I'll tell you that right now. I believe a man should own his own house and car and cow. I like this private ownership, and I want to be left alone. Let the government run its business, and let me run my own.
Fear of the bomb led to hysterical propaganda.
Be ready every day, all the time, to do the right thing if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover. That's the first thing to do. Duck and cover. First, you duck. And then, you cover.
He did what we all must learn to do. You and you and you and you, you and you and you and you. Duck and cover.
How far do you have to be from the blast to live through it?
Well, let's take a 20 megaton surface burst.
It was the atomic age, and the great symbol of progress was nuclear power. The U.S. Navy thought it might take 20 years to harness it for propulsion, but one man believed otherwise. Hyman G. Rickover has become an American legend. He only ever commanded an ancient minesweeper and never saw combat. In 1949, when he took charge of naval reactors, nuclear submarines were a futuristic dream. And yet by 1960, there were 13 in service and 35 more on the slipways.
A speedster which will command a submerged 50 miles per hour, making it necessary for her crew to wear life belts during her...
The magnificent agility performance of that submarine, where you could almost fly in, it's what it was like, under aircraft carriers, match their speeds, or operate on the flank of a task force, picking the time and the place for your attack. You say to the crew, well, we'll wait till after the movie's over.
USS Triton, the world's largest nuclear submarine.
As well as speed and agility, nuclear power gave the submarine unheard of endurance.
Captain Beach, who skippered the Triton on a course matching...
The Triton was a brand new submarine. She had never been to sea. This was the shakedown cruise, and it was the shakedown cruise to end all shakedown cruises. And so, I felt we had really accomplished something. We'd shown that the nuclear submarine could do anything.
It's Nautilus Day in New York, and the submariners who conquered the Arctic are cheered to the echo in their progress along the city's traditional route of heroes.
Rickover won public and political support for his achievements, but his contempt for bureaucracy led him into constant conflict with the Navy.
Admiral Arleigh Burke probably described the situation best with regard to Admiral Rickover. He said that the Navy could certainly only afford one anarchist at a time. Admiral Rickover was a gentleman who took no guidance from any Navy chief, no civilian Secretary of the Navy, no Secretary of Defense, and no president.
But his ruthless pursuit of excellence in what he saw as a mediocre world also left him isolated and loathed.
I think he did it because of his personality, and that was the only way he could get the results that he wanted. But everybody who knew him hated him. Everybody was scared to death of him, and when he laid out an order, you did it, because if you didn't, you got canned. And I mean it. He was very tough.
For 3 decades, Rickover personally interviewed and approved every nuclear officer. For each one, it was an unforgettable event.
I had talked to many of the young lieutenants who were being interviewed by Rickover, and so I was perhaps more prepared for the obscenity than most. It was a day-long interview during which I was thrown out of his office on at least 4 occasions for insolence or other answers that did not please him.
The trouble with you is you want easy answers, but you don't know the proper questions.
Why didn't you think about it at the time and start something?
Well, unfortunately, the time that you started in nuclear power in 1946, I was being born. So I admit that I'm coming to the issue late, all right? But
well,
it's
you're the
no
rising
less a
argument with every answer, sarcasm in great quantities, an effort to degrade, to humiliate, to anger.
And only Jesus Christ can do all of them. I can't.
At the end of the interview, Admiral Rickover said, "Now, what are you going to say when you get back to your office?" And I said, "I'm going to say this was the most fascinating experience of my life." And he said, "Now you're being a greasy aide. Get out of here."
Rickover's influence is still felt in every corner of the U.S. nuclear navy. Few dispute his engineering and safety standards, but some believe Rickover's dream was achieved at considerable cost.
Admiral Rickover was the right man in the early years. I think that the Navy and individuals in the Navy paid a fearsome price in later years, and there are many broken careers as a result of Admiral Rickover's dictatorial policies.
I have to agree with a lot of those who say they don't like his methods, but man, you can't quarrel with the results.
10 years after Rickover's regime ended, nuclear submarines are still commanded by men he selected.
And the Admiral slammed his hand down on the desk and he said, "Answer the question." And I said, "Yes, sir. I'm ready to go earn my living." And he said, "Get out of here."
Quiet and control, 4 eyes on the Fairwater planes, 3 up. 100 feet, sir.
Here I am, 20 years later, driving a nuclear-powered ship.
The nuclear submarine became the icon of the Cold War. Its greater mobility and endurance increased its stealth because nuclear submarines could hide anywhere. Previously inaccessible parts of the world acquired new strategic significance.
Let's fold up the Mercator projections and look at the globe from above. And we'll see a huge unexplored ocean right at the top, the Arctic. Look, it's bordered on the one half of the circumference by Soviet Russia and on the other half by Canada and Alaska. You can hide under the ice if you're a submarine, and don't forget there's no other kind of vehicle at all that can get there. You can pop up through the ice and you can fire missiles from there to either side.
Early submarine-launched missiles were short-range and had to be located close to the enemy's coastline. But today's long-range missiles can hit their targets from anywhere in the world's oceans.
We're talking areas the size of states, huge pieces of ocean. I can go wherever I need to go at will, totally random, continuously ready to launch.
Out of the 10 submarine Trident force in Bangor, Washington, we would have 7 of them out on alert at a time. And on every one of those 7 submarines, I have one missile, which would have 3 of its warheads saying Moscow, Kiev, Leningrad. That's for starters, but that's on every one of the 7. The one in the North Atlantic, the one in the South Pacific, the one in the Indian Ocean, the one in the Gulf of California, the Great Lakes, wherever we want them. And in case you think you can do the job of surveillance detection to trigger destruction of submarines with IR, infrared, or laser, it'll be the one under the pole, too.
This container holds a Trident missile, Or more accurately, since the Navy routinely neither confirms nor denies the presence of nuclear weapons, it can be assumed it does because of something happening 2 miles away. The Georgia is approaching the explosive handling wharf, where missiles and torpedoes are loaded. But it's the convoy of heavily armed Marines that gives the best clue to the truck's load. When nuclear weapons are on the move, absolutely nothing is left to chance. This is the first move in the game. The players are scattered throughout the oceans of the world. The game is hide and seek, but it's a deadly version. When he submerges, Captain Shguliov will look for a quiet corner of the ocean to park his Typhoon and hide. But from what? No missile can find him since his whereabouts are unpredictable. No satellite can see him. No laser yet invented can detect him. He is effectively invisible, except to another submarine. This is the USS Topeka. She's a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine, a state-of-the-art hunter-killer. Unlike the hunter-killers of World War II, her principal targets are not on the surface. One of her jobs is to seek out enemy submarines like Captain Shguliov's Typhoon, and in wartime, destroy them. In the meantime, it's a secret war.
There has indeed been a secret war. Russians versus the West, West versus the Russians. The problem is this. Submarines can't be seen, we all know that. The only way you can detect them is to listen for them. To listen for them with huge ears built into the submarine itself.
Leonardo da Vinci once wrote, "If you place the head of a long tube in the water and the other extremity to your ear, you will hear a ship at a great distance from you." In the Second World War, submarines were detected by bouncing sound waves off them. This is the principle of active sonar, but with it goes the risk of revealing your own position. Today, silent listening is the key. Passive sonar. Sophisticated arrays of microphones collect sound from all directions in the water, translating it into these visual displays. Interpreting this information is the science and the art of the sonar man.
Now, there's many things in the ocean, and if a submarine is looking for its counterpart, it's got to pick it out from every other kind of sound in the ocean. Now, there's the noise that whales make, burping. There's a noise that sharks make, slithering through the sea and flicking their tails. There's a noise that shrimps make, making love, snap, crackle and pop, as a matter of fact, it sounds like. There's the noise of the sea itself, of the seabed. There's a noise of merchant ships going through. And then somewhere in that, you hope to pick out the submarine that's stealthily making its way past you. That's the one you want to nail, because he's your real enemy.
Each grain of green light represents a sound. The vertical lines indicate the presence of ships and submarines in the ocean. A highly trained sonar man can identify details such as how many propellers a contact has, how many blades on each propeller, and how fast it's revolving.
01 bears 042. Contacts making 8 turns on one 4-bladed screw.
Well, how do you pick him out? And the answer is that you've got to fingerprint each of these separate sounds and keep them in some kind of library, just like the fingerprint library that the FBI or Scotland Yard keeps.
So detailed is this library, a specific submarine can be identified by its acoustic signature. Recordings have been collected by spying on each other at very close quarters.
Active single pane.
During the Cold War, U.S. and Soviet submarines played what are called cat and mouse games. An American submarine would be going near a Soviet port on an intelligence collection mission, and suddenly they would be spotted by the Soviets would send out a submarine, and they would engage in some sort of a confrontational maneuver several hundred feet below the sea. This happened on many occasions, and there were even some scraping of hulls.
All we're getting is
some noise from it.
In this secret war, a hunter-killer uses sonar to find its targets. A boomer uses it to avoid the hunter. Tactically, each must be as quiet as possible.
This submarine is built with the finest technology available to make her stay undetected. Her acoustic signature is the quietest submarine in the world. The crew and the machinery inside it are essentially sound isolated from the ocean. The very decks we walk on are in fact sound isolated. I know that this ship is undetectable unless I do something frankly stupid.
But when leaving port, any submarine is detectable by satellite, by underwater detection systems, and by hostile submarines lying in wait. The game of tag starts here, and to get the edge on your opponent, you have to find his blind spot.
Only hears? Not if we stay in his baffles, Seaman Beaumont. Not if we stay in his baffles. Come in behind his propeller and he's deaf as a post.
It is now second nature for any submarine commander to look over his shoulder. Each side has its own tactics to check if they're being followed.
Now, the way the Soviets chose to do this was to turn around and go back at high speed. Hence the expression Crazy Ivan, because if there was somebody behind them, the first thing the person behind them knew was that this submarine was racing back down the line at them.
He turned on us when we weren't suspecting at one time, but we didn't come anywhere near colliding. Brought us a little closer than we wanted to be.
Possible aspect change on target.
Sonar con eye.
Sure, possible target sig based on bearing rates.
Consonar, Crazy Ivan! You're playing a game a lot when you're out there. It's a serious game. He comes at you and you're heading at him, and who's going to turn first?
And these incidents have led to real casualties and loss of life, according to reports in the Chicago Tribune.
The Tautog had been trailing the Soviet missile sub for some hours when the Soviet sub pulled a Crazy Ivan, came hurtling back toward the Tautog at a fairly decent speed, 12 knots or so, we think. The Tautog, for whatever reason, didn't get deep enough. The underside of the Soviet sub smashed into the Tautog's sail. The Tautog got knocked on its side. Crew members who were sleeping got dumped out of their bunks. Lockers all opened in the kitchen. Jars of cherries splattered all over the place. Tools were popping out of lockers. In the sonar shack, the operators were listening. At some point, picked up the sound that one Navy veteran described to us as being like popping of popcorn. And our people interpreted that as the sound of the Soviet submarine breaking up as it got into the great depths in the ocean there.
The Navy will neither confirm nor deny this report, and in the tradition of the Silent Service, refuses to discuss such issues.
I, first wouldn't talk about any encounters that I've had that are classified, and I'd like to shoot anybody who would.
What they doing? Bring it in!
Witnessing this scene, you could be forgiven for imagining that the Cold War is not officially over. But the so-called evil empire has disintegrated. According to its supporters, deterrence worked, and the genie never left the bottle.
There's an ongoing debate now about what is the future for the submarine force. The Cold War is over. The Soviet Union is gone. Weren't they the only enemy? One of the problems I have with that logic is there's still an awful lot of people out there who are not in any way, shape, or form friendly. The last 4 patrols this crew made with this ship, the following events occurred. The United States invaded Panama. Iraq invaded Kuwait. Desert Storm occurred. And then there was a little thing called a coup in the Soviet Union. Now, none of those events was very well predicted by the opposition. Are we clairvoyant? Are we able to see into the future, to next week, next month, next year, the next decade, on when we're going to rely on our having these ships?
Are these warheads still labeled Moscow, Leningrad, and Kiev? For their part, the Russians have announced that they are no longer targeting U.S. cities.
Request permission to come aboard, sir.
Yes, sir.
A real pleasure to be with you here today on this big ship. I've heard that the Russians have said that they're not targeting our country, and that's fine. I believe it. All you have to do to target something is make the decision. In 15 seconds, you can do it. The capability exists, and we have to deal in capabilities, not intentions. Dogs in the same litter fight. You can't change it.
But the collapse of the superpower balance does raise questions about the continued relevance of nuclear deterrence with its crippling cost.
The cost of Trident, the capital cost, is a stack of £10 notes, tidily, neatly arranged, pressed down, reaching 88.38 miles into the sky.
Some believe the colossal cost of the ballistic missile submarine race also succeeded as a financial deterrent, hastening the economic collapse of the Soviet Union, crushing an entire social structure under the weight of its own armor.
We would like to see this expenditure redirected towards the welfare of our people. We'd like to have peace, happiness, goodwill to men, and to beat our swords into plowshares, so to speak.
When the Turtle was peddled out into New York Harbor, its inventor could hardly have imagined that the principle he was demonstrating would one day have the capacity to destroy the entire planet. But in a fragmenting world, is there still room for this ultimate deterrent? Out in the oceans, today's submariners continue to do their job.
I must assure you that if I ever have to go up against another submarine, I'm going to win. And I'm going to win because I have the best ship and I have the best crew and I know how to fight a submarine. I've been trained that my whole adult life. I'm really good at it.
Diving officer, surf the ship using high-pressure air. Surface, surface, surface.
While you've been watching this program, somewhere, hundreds of feet beneath the ocean, the crews of the Georgia and the Typhoon may well have been rehearsing the launch of their missiles. They are out there now, maybe only a few hundred miles from where you are, waiting for the call.